In this video, I am going to be telling the story of Season 3 of the hit Netflix crime show Money Heist. I have done parts 1 and 2 on the channel if you want to check those ones out, and those links will be in the description below. I will also put the episode timestamps down below, as well if you just want to recap a single episode. But with that said, let's get it started. Episode 1. We're back. The gang has been living free for over 3 years now after the Royal Mint of Spain heist from Season 1 and 2. Everyone seems to be happy, including Rio and Tokyo, who are living on a secluded island together. Nairobi and Helsinki are living in Argentina, Denver, Monica, and their baby are in Indonesia, while the professor and Raquel are in the Philippines. Tokyo does tell Rio she is tired of the island life and wants to be around civilization and people, but he isn't as down for that as she is. Rio tells Tokyo to go spend a few days in the city and live it up, and he will wait back for her to return. He gives her a satellite phone to call if anything is needed. He bought it off the black market. A few days pass and Rio tries calling her, but unfortunately the person he bought the phone from told the police about it, and now Interpol has Rio's location. The authorities then show up and arrest Rio while Tokyo was gone. We then flash back 3 years right after the heist, where the professor gave everyone a number to call in extreme emergencies, and Tokyo ends up calling the professor and Raquel to tell him Rio has been apprehended. They then meet in Thailand. Raquel now goes by Lisbon to fit in with the others. The professor knows that Rio is probably being tortured because no news has been made that he was arrested, and that's not normal. He believes they are torturing Rio to hopefully get the professor's location, but Rio doesn't honestly know where he is. The professor then calls everyone in the gang back together, and everyone arrives for a dinner. The professor tells them they are going to do another heist, and by doing so, they can free Tokyo. Denver is not happy with the plan one bit, but he eventually agrees. It was Berlin's dream heist before he died, and the professor wants to do it in his honor and obviously to rescue Rio. Throughout the season, we will see a ton of flashbacks of Berlin with his ex-wife Tatiana and his best friend, Palermo, who is still alive and will be joining this heist as well. A few other newcomer heist members are Bogota and Marseille. Monica, also known as Stockholm now, will be helping as well, even though Denver doesn't want her to, but she says she is going. They all meet together in a classroom like before, and the professor tells them they are going to rob the Bank of Spain, not the Mint this time. The episode ends with a blimp with a Dolly logo dropping cash everywhere in the middle of Madrid, signaling the Dolly gang is back for another heist. Episode 2. Aikido. This episode opens with the professor showing a stream where he says the Dolly gang is back and they demand justice for Rio, who is being illegally detained and tortured at the moment. The public looks as the Dolly is heroes in a Robin Hood sense, so they have the world on their side. The gang has tons of money now, and instead of a small setup for Rio to hack things, the professor is able to hire a whole crew of hackers abroad that can do everything Rio did and in much quicker fashion. Everyone packs up into army trucks and they enter the Bank of Spain, while the professor and Lisbon will be working from the truck as he did before. We then jump to Rio, who has been getting tortured pretty badly, and the head honcho in charge is Alicia Sierra, who will be the Raquel of this season. The brilliant detective that will need to outwit the professor to prevent the heist from being successful. Once the public realizes what the Dolly are doing, they cheer as their favorite criminals are back to steal more government money. They have a very loyal following. Once inside the bank, the gang counts the hostages, which total to 367 of them, a ton more than the following heist, so it will be interesting to see how they manage that many hostages with so few robbers. The episode ends with the professor and Raquel saying it is showtime, and there is no going back now. Episode 3. 48 meters underground. The episode opens up with the Bank of Spain guards activating their security system, which closes off the bank, so no one can go in and no one can go out unless authorized. Nairobi and Tokyo try talking with the governor of the bank as they need his fingerprints and face scan to open up the vaults they want in, but he says he will not do it, and they can kill him before he lets their heist be successful. The governor also has his head security there, Cesar Gandia, who is like John Wick and seemingly has 9 lives, as we will see throughout the season. Down at the ground level, Palermo is talking with the hostages and tells them everything will be fine and they won't get hurt as long as they follow his orders. He then hands them all Dolly masks. It's obvious that Helsinki has a thing for Palermo, but Palermo treats him terribly and just acts like he is better than him. Palermo definitely comes off as a cocky prick for a lot of this heist. When Gandia is put in the same room as the other guards, a shootout occurs and Palermo is blinded by shrapnel, but eventually Gandia and the other guards are subdued. Tokyo is tasked with removing the shards from his eyes before it gets infected, and it's obvious that Palermo and Tokyo don't really care for each other either. Kind of like how Berlin and Tokyo's relationship was in the first heist. Nairobi warns the hostages that bombs are at every exit, so they better not try any funny business. Bogota then picks 4 lucky hostages to help him work in the vault, as they will be melting gold. Outside of the bank, the guy in charge of the operation, Luis Tamayo, shows up and he calls Alicia Sierra to come be his right-hand woman as well. They have done many heists together and have never failed to win. We see flashbacks of Berlin telling the professor about this heist, and the professor doesn't know if it will work, but Berlin promises him it will. The mint was the professor's grand heist. This one was Berlin's. Nairobi goes down to the vault, which fills with water as a security measure, and she goes in with an air tank and grabs 2 bars of the gold. They wanted the water to fill up the vault as it is part of their elaborate plan. Episode 4. It's Dolphin time. In the negotiation van, Tamayo is extremely pissed to learn that the professor found a way to hack their devices and has been eavesdropping on their conversations the whole time they've been there. Tamayo doesn't want to wait like Raquel did in the prior heist, and he wants to go in there immediately and light it up. Tamayo also starts chatting with the professor, and Tamayo says he isn't playing games this time, and if innocent blood needs to be shed, it will be shed. The professor tells him he didn't expect anything less. Inside the bank, Tokyo hands everyone bulletproof vests as there has already been one shootout, and they don't want any hostages to be hit because the public opinion for them would change if they are cold-blooded murderers. In flashbacks, we see how the gang will be able to communicate with each other using encrypted radio waves, and the professor tells them that the only way they can save Rio is to get the gold out of the bank, and if they fail, Rio will be burnt toast. The gold is going to be their negotiation leverage. Then the worst dude in the series shows up at the bank, Arturo, who sits down with Tamayo and tells him everything he knows about the robbers and who would be in charge now that Berlin is dead. He believes Denver is the head honcho now. Tamayo wants to know their psychology and think 2 steps ahead, but little does he know, the professor thinks 4 steps ahead, so he will still be behind. Inside the bank, Denver and Stockholm have a heart-to-heart, and he tells her he will die for her and their son, Cincinnati, if it comes to it. The governor of the bank has a seizure, and Nairobi does her best to save him because he is vital to their plan. But now, with the governor incapacitated for the time being, Bogota is able to blow the vault open with a C4 explosive. If they had C4, why did they need the governor to open the vault? The explosive does cause an audible gasp outside with Tamayo and the other onlookers as they think someone may have just died. Episode 5. Boom boom, Ciao. Tamayo has sent a helicopter over the bank ready to attack them through the roof, but then Denver holds up a red box that apparently contains a bunch of cover-ups the government has hidden in the vault, and this causes Tamayo to call his men off of the invasion. Obviously, there is something in those boxes that could be really damaging to the government if the information was made public, and the professor knew this. Back inside the bank, Nairobi was eventually able to save the governor from his seizure he experienced, so they breathe a sigh of relief there. In the negotiation van, Tamayo explains to the local police there that the government has covered up a ton of deaths in the Mediterranean that would make them look bad if the public found out, so they have to do everything they can to not let that information out. He's afraid the public would riot if they knew all of the truth. It would make the whole country of Spain look like a bunch of jackasses if the world found out all of their dirt. No countries would want to deal with them anymore, which could lead to the collapse of their political system. Alicia Sierra then arrives with Rio in custody, and she starts talking to the professor and then to Lisbon because Raquel and Sierra used to do work together, as they both are inspectors and high-ranking ones at that. So they know each other pretty well. Alicia threatens Lisbon by capturing her mother and daughter if she doesn't have over the professor immediately, but Lisbon isn't falling for her threats. This sparks an argument between the professor and Lisbon because he thinks she may be making it too personal, and that can be when things get sloppy. He tells her she should go back to the Philippines to be with her mother and daughter, and he will return after the heist is over, but she demands to stay. The episode ends with Palermo beating Gandia senseless because of what he did to his eye, and then Nairobi pulls him aside and does her best to calm him down. She also realizes that Palermo was in love with Berlin, and that is why he treats Helsinki like crap. He doesn't actually care for him like he did Berlin. Episode 6. Everything seemed insignificant. The episode opens with a flashback of Berlin introducing Tatiana to the professor, and apparently she is a master thief as well, so she pairs with Berlin perfectly. He did tell her about the Bank of Spain heist, and the professor gets mad at him because they aren't supposed to share the details with anyone else, but Berlin says he can trust Tatiana and she will be joining them. The professor is afraid of her telling the police, and then their plan won't be successful. Back in present day, the melting and welding of all the gold has started and is making good pace. They are melting the gold so they can break it down into pellets and then flow it out of the drain system the vault uses for the water. Alicia released false information about the professor to the public in hopes of gaining sympathy, and the professor immediately is angered by this. But we all know he will find a way to prove their lies wrong once again. While they were driving, the professor and Raquel spotted someone following them, so they drove off their path and their RV antenna falls off, and they get stuck. With no contact with the professor, Palermo doesn't know what to do because the army looks like they are about to invade the bank, and he wants to get their weapons ready if needed. A few Dolly fans see the RV stuck, and they help them remove it from the mud. Suarez and a few other guards try invading the bank through the bathroom, but they run into the gang who fire bullets at them. Eventually, Suarez and the other guards accept defeat and are tied up and videotaped to send to Tamayo. The professor then sends this video feed to the police and says they will hand over 40 hostages and these guards in exchange for Rio to be let back into the bank with the others. Alicia accepts the deal, and the following day, Rio is allowed to enter the bank and be with the gang again. Episode 7. A Quick Vacation. This episode opens up with Rio and Tokyo being with each other once again, and all seems to be happy inside the bank, which usually means something bad is about to go down. It's just how shows work. With the doors still open, Arturo comes up with the bright idea to go back inside the bank as well so he can find Monica and confess his love to her and show he has changed since the Mint heist. He also wants to ask her if he can meet his son that she has been raising with Denver. He is the biological father of Cincinnati. He tries talking to Stockholm, but she is having none of it and asks Helsinki to keep him away from her. Back outside, the police have offered a €10 million award for anyone that can tell them the professor's whereabouts. The professor and Raquel abandoned the RV because they thought police would find them soon after crashing in the last episode, and so many people saw them. With a €10 million award, even a Dolly fan might give up their location for that much cash. Angel has informed Tamayo they have tracked down the RV, and they don't believe Raquel, and the professor could have got too far. The professor has managed to call inside the bank, and he asks Rio about the torture he went through, and boy is it brutal. He was left standing up in a coffin for days, unable to leave, not even to eat or use the restroom, and he was forced to dig his own grave. The professor is going to use this audio as more leverage with public opinion. A little later that day, Rio and Tokyo take a bath together, and Rio tells her he doesn't think they should be together anymore and they need to grow up, which this just pisses her off because she went through all of this to rescue him and be with him. The professor and Raquel escaped in an ambulance, but were seen by a drone, and they take off into separate directions, hoping to hide better alone than together. The professor climbs a tree, and Raquel hides in a local barn in the chicken coop. An army of troops have shown up and are hunting them down. They are still in walkie range, so they can still talk to each other while hiding. The episode ends with Tamayo and Alicia talking and trying to figure out why they are melting the gold, and they are confused on how the gang plans on getting it out. Episode 8. Astray. Season Finale. The finale opens up with Raquel and the professor still hiding in their own locations, but still are communicating. The professor knows he hasn't been the easiest to deal with so far this heist, and he tells Raquel is sorry for how he has been acting, and she is the first woman he has ever been in love with and isn't very good at relationships, which just makes her smile. She says she loves him too, and immediately, the owner of the barn finds her hiding with the chickens. Back in the bank, Tokyo got super duper drunk because she is still hurt by Rio breaking up with her, and she is just trying to cause a bunch of drama as she does best. Rio and Tokyo are my least two favorite characters out of the gang. The plans would go so much smoother without them included. Back to the professor, who has told Palermo to run Plan Alcatraz, which is supposed to divert attention with the police if the professor or Raquel were in danger. They then fake an escape to turn Tamayo's attention towards the bank and not the manhunt going on. They then fake an escape using a ferret that has a tracking chip on it, and Tamayo falls for it like a sucker. It didn't work too well to call off the manhunt, though, as Alicia told Angel to continue searching and not worry about the heist. Alicia also looked through everyone's individual files, and she sees that Nairobi has a son, and Alicia wants to use him to bait Nairobi into giving herself up. They send a teddy bear into the bank, and this completely pisses Nairobi off, and she wants to speak with Alicia woman to woman, and luckily, there was a phone inside the bear. Nairobi talks to Sierra on the phone, and she goes to a window upstairs and sees her son with Alicia, and then out of nowhere, Nairobi is shot through the window. Stockholm is there trying to save her. Back in the barn, Raquel is trying to plead with the landowners that she will double whatever award they would get for turning her in, and they don't know what to do. The police soon arrive and demand to see the property owners, and Raquel begs them to hide her somewhere she won't be seen. Eventually, the man gives her up to the authorities. Suarez tells Raquel to give up the professor's location, and he can hear the whole conversation going on, and then out of nowhere, a gunshot is heard, and on the headset, the professor can hear Suarez say, "She did this to herself?" And the professor drops to his knees in heartbreaking fashion because the woman of his life was just murdered and he heard it. Back in the bank, everyone is rushing to save Nairobi, but it's not looking too good for her. To make matters worse, Denver notices army tanks about to enter the front of the bank. They have no other choice than to bring out the big guns, and Tokyo shoots a missile at one of the tanks and blows it up for the whole world to see. The season ends with us finding out that Lisbon wasn't actually dead, and they just made it sound that way for the professor to break down and make a mistake. The professor then tells the others that this isn't a heist anymore. This is a war. And the season ends. And that is it for this one. Hope you're able to check out seasons 4 and 5 when I release those videos in the coming days. Thanks for watching.